So, with a little bit of delay, I would like to extend a warm welcome to everybody who joined us in person tonight, today, in person and also online, to our presentation about the human rights and the lived experiences of SOGIESC communities, a Moroccan perspective. We are Ishtar Mina Analytics, Gabriele Guzzi and Damien Berger, and we started this project about 1 year ago. This project was executed by Ishtar Mina Analytics in collaboration with ReportOUT and the Moroccan LGBTQ plus community. Within this year, it has been a challenging year for the project. We had many struggles. We had to change partners quite a few times. But today we are happy to be here and present the results of our project to you. Presenting today, Damien, he is a social scientist with relation to the MENA region, the Middle East and North Africa region. He studied and he worked in Morocco, and he currently works in the migration sector for the Swiss government. Myself, I am Gabriele Guzzi, and I study Middle Eastern Studies, and I currently work in the diplomatic sector for the Swiss Foreign Ministry. On today's agenda, we will give you some background information about Morocco. We will highlight some sectorial struggles that are important for the execution and for the understanding of the results of this study. We will present our partners a bit further. We will highlight the research design, the project, and the methodology, and then we will shed light on some key findings of our research. Namely, we'll highlight the violent aspect, family aspect, and the aspect of a self-reliant community. Before we finish the presentation with a conclusion and some policy recommendations. With this, I would like to hand over to Damien.
Thank you very much. I think I need to come over here not to be on screen. Right, thank you so much. So we're starting with something that perhaps can be called the single most important and most dramatic sort of event or incident in human history in Morocco, just to sort of give you a little sense of what it's like to be here in Morocco. This was the online harassment campaign in 2020, spring 2020. It was launched by homophobic incitement of some social media personalities, and then urged their followers to go online to create fake profiles on Grindr and other queer dating platforms, and then to actively search for people in their environment that they recognize and out them as queer. And that's had a huge ramification for the queer community in Morocco. Many of them were being outed. Their identity was revealed to their families, to their environments. They were, as a result, harassed. Some of them were thrown out of their homes. Some of them lost their families, disinherited, or even physically abused. So it had huge ramifications for the whole community. And it also had the result that the online space that had beforehand been sort of a safe space for the queer community to interact and to engage with each other in Morocco was now also being targeted by homophobic groups and individuals. So this is very much in the collective conscious of the queer Moroccan community, and we'll get back to it later on. Right, thank you. Now, just a little bit about the background in Morocco. Morocco has about 37 million people with a huge young population. Around 45% of the population are below 25 years, which is extraordinary. Many of them, unfortunately, are unemployed. So we have an unemployment rate of around 30%, which is characteristic for the region itself. In terms of religion, the overwhelming majority is Sunni Muslim. There are some Christians and some Jews, and very little Shia. Morocco is a rather conservative country with where religious values are held high still. Only about 6% of Moroccans identify as non-religious, even though you cannot be non-religious according to the law in Morocco, but according to Arab barometer, which is a really good study on the region, about 6% identify as non-religion, and this number is receding even across the last years. Estimates say that about 3 to 4% of people identify as queer or belong to the SOGIESC community. Morocco is a country that criminalizes same-sex relationships, same-sex acts. So it's very much in the gray, these numbers. Then in terms of the government, it's a liberalized authoritarian monarchy, meaning that there's a constitution, there's a parliament, but the government is put in place by the king, and the king has the last say on every issue. So it's very much an authoritarian regime. Yes, thank you. To give you a little bit about the legal framework that we'll be talking about as well today, and there's the Article 489, which is sort of the most important when it comes to queer communities. It's a penal code inherited from the French colonial system, as it's the case in a lot of former colonies. Morocco was a protectorate, but works the same way. And for those who have been with the Bangladeshi talk before, it's a very similar way of transponding this penal code. It was largely kept after. There is also the Article 491 and 490 that criminalize sex or relations outside marriage. And since people cannot marry, this is always sort of a double criminalization. And then there's the Article 483 that criminalizes public indecency, which is a very broad term and can be applied even to sort of indecent clothing. So it's very much at the liberty of policemen or the authorities to distinguish what actually is proof of guilt there, which is of course very important for the trans community. Right.
In the following 3 slides, we're going to talk a bit about what we call sectorial struggles, so some sectorial aspects that actively shape the daily life of, well, pretty much everybody, but in this presentation with a focus on the LGBTQ plus community in Morocco. And we're going to start with the media. The media and the mainstream media outlets in Morocco often provide a platform for negative narratives of SOGIESC individual without fear of recrimination. This happened, for example, in 2017 when the then Minister of Human Rights and former Minister of Justice, Mustafa Ramil, openly referred to in the media to homosexual as trash. Studies show that SOGIESC issues are the second most covered topic in Morocco, and it is covered in a predominantly negative way. Our research also showed that 41% of the respondents of our survey perceived the Moroccan media to be to use a fairly widespread offensive language against SOGIESC communities. So what this says is that there is a very widespread negative public narrative about SOGIESC issues, SOGIESC communities. And in order to counter that, collectives and activists, namely Kif and also Aswat meaning voices in Arabic, they created online magazines, printed magazines, in order to highlight SOGIESC issues from their perspectives and to create an anti-homophobic campaign named Love for All. This was in 2010 and 2012, but they faced serious government opposition by not being given any license to publish the printed media, and also an editor of a fairly known newspaper writing in his newspaper that these narratives and the promotion of homosexuality is a danger for society. But this we would like to shed light on a very, very important aspect in Morocco. Morocco has a very family-orientated society. Many aspects in life, social and financial security, as well as access to jobs, education, health service, access to any public service is heavily dependent on family structures and the inclusion in those family structures. The exclusion from family structures has dire consequences in this family-oriented Moroccan society. Therefore, life in secrecy is the rule. This has also other ramifications. Research often shows that violence happens within the families. We're talking about physical violence, psychological violence, abandonment, social marginalization. There is an understanding in Morocco of parents, but also of individuals in general, that they have the right to massively intervene into the private life of others. This is especially true within the family context. These conditions is important to keep in mind for our later evaluation of the analysis. Talking about health, I would like to break it down on a general level, on a regional level, and then on the Moroccan context. Generally speaking, research shows that LGBTQ plus individuals are at least 1.5% more likely than heterosexuals to suffer from depression, anxiety disorders, and dependence on substances. Within the Arab region, there is regional specifications to this. So depression is named as the most common psychiatric disorder in this vulnerable group in the Arab region. It is important maybe to know that within the Arab region, belong or identifying as SOGIESC is often seen as a mental disorder and accordingly is treated as depression, for example. Post-traumatic stress disorder is the second most common psychiatric disorder. 50% experience suicidal ideation, and suicidality is particularly noted among trans women. In a society where everything depends on the perception of yourself, and being outed or coming out is a serious threat to being rejected from family and therefore losing access to financial security, social security, every kind of service, social service you can think of. This has specific ramifications for specifically talking about the health sector, where individuals are feared to address health issues with the medical sector because of fearing to be outed as belonging to the SOGIESC community. This leads to stigmatization within the health sector and the lack of access to prevention services and sexual health treatments in general.
So I think from the sectoral struggles and what we've presented so far, it becomes clearly self-evident why it's so important to know more about the sexual and gender experiences and lived experiences of the community in Morocco. So before we delve into the study itself, let's just quickly recap we are. We've already said we're Star Analytics, sort of a small research collective we funded in London. We're a group of young professionals and academics all around the world, and especially also in the region, and working on the region mostly. We were approached by Drew, who just left the room, about a year ago, whether we wanted to join actually the project that had already been ongoing there out in Morocco. And of course, we're all in because we feel like it's also, as a social scientist, it's our goal to make a change in areas where we believe we should make one. And this certainly ticks all boxes. A plethora of various sexual and gender minority activist collectives and individuals were at some part involved or valuably contributed to the study. Not all of them wanted to be named today. Those wanted are the two that are named here. The first one is Talian, which means in Moroccan until when. It's Morocco's first trans sex worker activist group. Very brave collective. I encourage you all to look it up. And the second one is Ajaf, which roughly translates to fantasies in Arabic. They're Moroccan organization for sexual and gender minorities, and advocacy for the human rights of all genders. And special thanks also goes, of course, to ReportOUT, to Drew and Phil for their assistance, and also to the volunteers Sufyan Al-Hamdi and Zaha Lamraoui, two Moroccans who helped us extensively with very valuable inputs for the methodology, but also for the distribution of the study later on. So let's go into the methodology. In light of the very multifaceted struggles that queer communities face in Morocco, the study had the following objectives. First of all, we wanted to investigate because to the best of our knowledge, there is no such study existing, or no such intel at the moment from Morocco. And so we wanted to just investigate the lived experiences of the community. We wanted to explore the obstacles and give them the opportunity to voice their concerns, especially in everyday mundane lives. We wanted to measure the social, legal, and political pressures that the community faces, of course, to evaluate then these issues and maybe come up with some avenues of where we could make change. And then also the design sort of followed previous studies that had been made by ReportOUT, specifically in Uganda and in Mongolia. So there is also the aim to establish a certain comparability between the countries. The design is very straightforward. So we had literature, extensive literature research, drawing on the little that is already known about Morocco. Then we obviously oriented around the Sustainable Development Goals. Then the previous editions are also influenced, of course, the design of the study. And the study itself is designed to further increase research or support research in that direction. And first and foremost, advocacy and activism. Right. So the methodology sort of stretches across different sectors that are influenced by the SDGs. It's a total of 98 questions. It's fairly extensive. There are open questions, but also sort of big scale or quantitative questions. It's completely anonymous, of course, and there are some demographic markers, but not too many, because otherwise people could be identified easily, which we're trying to avoid. It's an online study. It's on a self-selection basis, so it's being distributed by and through the queer community networks in Morocco. The data collection phase was from February till April this year. It's in two versions. One is English and one is in Arabic and French. There's no time limit to complete it. And it was targeting individuals inside Morocco as well as outside Morocco. But from the respondents, we know that the overwhelming majority, so 93%, are currently living inside Morocco. It's, of course, in line with the Data Protection Act. We have we got 61 responses, which is seems like not a lot, but it's actually fairly good or impressive, I would say, considering that it's self-selected and people are usually quite hesitant, especially since the online harassment campaign, to openly state to whomever is interested. Of course, there's not the representativity, so we cannot actually do quantitative analysis, unfortunately. We might investigate some leads that could then spur further quantitative research, but at this point, there's no point in trying it. It's a self-selection bias, it's clear, and it's a pilot study that is not generalized in that sense. Right. Quick response overview, not to waste too much time. Most respondents live in cities. It's very representative of the overall ratio in Morocco. And where the study is not representative is there's a huge bias for people self-identifying as male. They are overwhelmingly well-educated, lots of them have master's or bachelor's degrees, which is also not normal for Moroccan society. And it's overwhelmingly young people, so we have no one older than 5 years old, which is of course explained through the selection process. But most of them don't have a stable job, which is also explained by that most of them are still in educational training, and most of them live in their family household, which is fairly normal in Morocco, but we'll get to that later.
As previously mentioned, the survey orientated itself along the Sustainable Development Goals of the UN. Just a quick reminder for, I assume everybody knows what the SDGs are, but in case somebody doesn't. It's a collection of 17 interlinked goals to serve as a shared blueprint for peace and prosperity for people and the planet, now and in the future. It was adopted in 2016 by the UN. In the Moroccan context, we decided to focus on six particular SDGs, and that was number 1, no poverty; 3, good health and well-being; 5, gender equality; 10, reduced inequalities; 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions; and 17, partnerships for the goals. In the final report that will be published anytime soon from now on, we will have an extensive analysis on every section of those SDGs. But for today, and for time reasons, we aim to present a bigger picture of the lived experience of the SOGIESC community in Morocco, and we will therefore break it down and boil the results down to 3 interlinked and overarching key findings that we find detrimental to understand the lived experience and the way society works in Morocco. And I would like to start with the violence. And there, one of our respondents, when asked about how widespread violence against SOGIESC people in Morocco is, there was a statement saying, everywhere, anytime, you could be subjected to offensive language with a big potential to escalate into violence. No one would be there to stop it, as violence against LGBTQ plus individuals is considered by many to be a good deed in Morocco. There is many experienced forms of violence. 83% of our respondents experienced online abuse, 2/3 verbal abuse, almost half threat of violence, a third threat of sexual attacks, a quarter violent attacks, and almost a quarter sexual attacks. In comparison, 13.5% have been affected by police officers or by police violence. There was a bit of a surprise for us that despite the fact that LGBTQ community perceived state authorities and religious authorities to display high levels of offensive behavior against the community, state authorities were not often named as perpetrators of such violence attacks. Most violence attacks came from strangers, acquaintances, friends of friends, people that are potentially known to the victims, and also, and this is an aspect we will dive into later, family. This is also reflected, or this finding is also reflected in when we analyze the places where such attacks happen. Most, 42% of our respondents experienced such attacks in cafe, bars, nightclubs, shopping scenarios, gym, very public places. And this stands into comparison with interaction or the potential of stigmatization and discrimination with an interaction with government agencies, who, according to our respondents, is at 18.6%. So far.
Thank you so much. Right. So the second sort of connecting node, if you will, is the family. We've already touched upon that before. Sort of the family is one aspect where the intertwinedness of the queer struggle in Morocco really shows itself. And in a way, also the centrality of the family for the queer struggle is one of the key messages, sort of take-home messages from our study. Just to sort of recap, Morocco has a very collectivist, very family-oriented structure. Most of our respondents did live with their families. I assume this is, or in general, young people in Morocco tend not to leave their family household, except if they get married, which is for the queer community seldom the case, and intermediately, like for brief periods when they go for education in another city. These are sort of the two tolerable ways to leave your family household for young people who are not married. And economically also, there are few opportunities to do sort of part-time jobs or finance your studies part-time in Morocco. And so people are economically very much reliant on their parents or on their family household. And of course, there's the whole, as Gabriele already presented, there's a whole structure in Morocco where family basically determines your life chances through education. Because in Morocco, most schools, or most good schools, are private schools, and you need a financial and social background to get into them. Through healthcare as well, because especially the queer community is reliant on private healthcare that is less discriminatory. Also, that's also a takeaway message from our respondents. And these, in turn, also is a function of the family connections. The social status, of course, is very much dependent on the family and life opportunities in general. There's the concept of wasta in Morocco, which means connections, and that's very prevalent for life. So there is a huge dependency on the family, and also most of our respondents actually stated that they financially depend on their parents. Now, what is very interesting is that only 28% of our respondents came out to their parents as queer or gay, and out of this, not out of this 20, but in total also 27% reported having been subjected to violence at the hands of family members. So that's not 27% out of the 28, but 27% in general, meaning that almost everybody who came out to their parents has also been subjected to violence at the hands of their parents or the extended families. That didn't account for sort of poor family and larger family. That would perhaps be an avenue for study for future research. Now, it was quite shockingly actually, because we offered the respondents also an opportunity to specify what kind of violence they were subjected to, and the responses were ranging from verbal abuse, mockery, physical abuse, withdrawal of love, being thrown out of their household, to even physical abuse or conversion therapy at the hands of their family or at the instigation of their family. So that's really quite crucial, I think, to understanding the ways and the struggles, the everyday struggles that the community faces in Morocco. And it's also a pattern that is sort of self-reinforcing, because people or our respondents also stated that they have trouble or are discriminated against that finding other living housing opportunities. There is not the concept of sort of collocation in Morocco, that doesn't exist there. It's also against the law to cohabit different sexes together, and there's a huge lot of discrimination in that sense. So people are actually forced to stay and live with their parents, which then of course reinforces their dependency and their vulnerabilities vis-a-vis their family households. So the take-home message from this is basically that the family and that sensibilization of families, for families as well as extended families, must be at the forefront of the struggle for equality in Morocco, and we need not just focus on the legal aspects of equality.
The third overarching topic that we would like to highlight is how to say a self-reliant community where the SOGIESC individuals in Morocco get their support, financial support, especially also emotional support from. When analyzing the data, a picture appears that the Moroccan LGBTQ plus community is first of all rejected by society, rejected by the state, and is very much self-reliant on themselves for support of any kind. What was also interesting when analyzing the statements with regards to this section of the analysis is that there is also very, very little support available from civil actors. There is almost no NGO, there's almost no collective offering these kind of support systems that are dearly needed in Morocco. So there is also a huge potential for private actors to step up and actually support the SOGIESC community. This is also reflected in other data. When, for example, asked who knows about their identity, we found that 71% confined to their closest friends, which stands in comparison to what David said before, 28% to their families. So there is a huge disbalance between who knows about the identity and who you can actually draw support from. What we also found is that there is actually an important role for internet, the online space, and social media. It offers a tool to the SOGIESC community in Morocco to actually connect, to discuss matters that are not discussed neither in public nor in the family, nowhere actually, and to actually also meet. And maybe also in relation to the family aspect that was highlighted before, research showed that within these self-reliant support system, the SOGIESC community in Morocco kind of recreates familiar family structures within themselves and plays on, or they take upon themselves family roles within the community. So lacking outside support systems and meaningful inclusion as citizens and humans in Moroccan society, that seems to be the root. And there's a huge potential, again, as I said before, for private actors to step up. This leaves us with the conclusion. What the research demonstrates, was that the Moroccan LGBT community lives under constant social pressure. Yes, being outed or coming out changes the lived experience crucially. There is a legal framework and state authorities that have a derogatory narrative of SOGIESC communities. This is an important aspect in Morocco. However, the research showed that most of the lived stress, pressure, and violence comes from private actors such as family, acquaintances, strangers, friends of friends, and sometimes even friends. This lived culture comes with structural characteristics on the social level. There is legitimization and incentivizing of harassment and violence against SOGIESC individuals, predominantly by the public, which leads to continuous circle of violence without accountability. This stands next to a lack of meaningful support, and there is absolutely no sensibilization and no cultural inclusion and no political inclusion of SOGIESC individuals in Morocco. This all leads to a very self-reliant SOGIESC community that lives under constant social, political pressure without real citizenship rights and sometimes without having access or having the love of the families.
Right. Thank you, Gabriele. So as you said, this is just sort of the preliminary results of some connecting notes that we thought are sort of the interconnecting aspects that we take out of the study. We will issue a full report, of course, that will come up, I guess, in a couple of weeks, and where we delve into more detail. So yeah, stay tuned for that. And we take some policy recommendations with us that sort of was very informed by the study itself. Policy must be understood in sort of a broader sense here, talking the state itself, but also NGOs and international communities. There are sort of, I would say, three areas of where change must be advocated. First of all, the legal area. It's clear that the articles 489, 490, 491, and also 483 must be abolished. And there's, at the moment, there's an anti-discrimination law in Morocco in place, but it doesn't account for sexual and gender minorities, so that should be broadened as well. And of course, the conversion therapy should be criminalized, which is not just in Morocco a question. And then we have the second aspect, which would be sort of the political avenue. There, it's important to include in gender sexual minority individuals sort of as citizens into the scope, the broader scope of the state, which includes first and foremost healthcare for all, because special needs for the queer community when it comes to treatment and prevention of SDGs, for example, are not being accounted for by public health services. So it also becomes a matter of money then, which leads to the SDG of no poverty. And then safe and affordable and anonymous support structures for the communities such as Safe House doesn't really exist at the moment and should definitely exist. Independent focal points to investigate discriminations. This was sort of paid lip service to in the wake of the online outing campaign, but never really followed up upon. It was more like an excuse to watch international partners that something was being done, whereas nothing was being done. There is no accountability or no real accountability. And then lastly also, and that's maybe also one of the key take-home messages from the study, the societal avenue for change cannot be underestimated. So there is a need for centralization campaigns that target especially the families and some core family structures, as well as community. And there must be a comprehensive dialogue and sort of destigmatize homosexuality, maybe even with a religious aspect as well, that try to foster treating queer people with more dignity, respect, and sort of mindful of their needs as citizens, as Moroccan citizens as well, which is not being the case right now. And then, of course, Morocco should also welcome the support of NGOs in Morocco itself, but also international NGOs, such as Médecins Sans Frontières, for example, that are able to provide the assistance where needed in the meantime until we have legal changes and sort of attract them. Well, lastly, our study, of course, drew and was inspired by the combined efforts of a lot of Moroccan queer individuals and collectives. Their voices must be heard, and that's why we included some of it's a non-exhaustive list of interesting studies as well as internet sites and books where queer Moroccan voices speak up for themselves, and we encourage you all sort of delve into that. We have one book here, if you want to have a look at it. It's called L'amour fait loi. It's in French, and it's also a product of the wake of the online harassment campaign, where a lot of activists, queer activists in mainly the sort of coastal area of Rabat, Casablanca, and Morocco, combined their efforts and made a very beautiful book that targets their discrimination in Morocco. Right, so we encourage you all to have a look. And that's it from our part, right? Questions and
First of all, I think you two are the most photographed people in the world. The photographers coming in and out. Some of you have our own internal photographer, the university one, and they just seem to bring some roots to the same time. Sorry, but I really enjoy it. And obviously, the out in Morocco research is really important. It's something I'm working tandem with you guys to make this happen. And all the partners in Morocco. What I'm really interested in is that I'm really interested in the concept of queer flight. When people move from their nation state elsewhere, and there's a sizable Moroccan community across all of the sea to Spain to go and live there, and many of them are LGBTQ. I just wondered if you had any thoughts on that, because Morocco is losing beautiful potential. You know, there's an economic argument to say that, isn't it? That they're losing these great people who are moving forward because of the conditions that they're facing in Morocco, and because of that culture of silence, as you talked about. I just wondered if you had any thoughts on that, or that's emerged.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's an issue in general that Morocco has, as we presented in the beginning, has this huge young population of 45% around the 25. It's incredible, and it's also, I mean, social scientists see that as a youth bulge that has led to an economic miracle in some other countries, and would have the potential to do the same in Morocco, not just economically but also culturally, of course. But Morocco is driving them away through their economic policies and through the authoritarianism and the non-liberal regime that they're implementing. That holds true for the queer community as well as for the other community, of course. It is, I think, on the basis of our study, because we only have around 7% also emigrated people in the study sample, so we cannot really make any statements about the community abroad or whether or not the queer situation was a driver of migration. But I think we had some responses that actually did highlight this, if I recall correctly, so that actually the situation, the worsening of the situation for the queer community was a key driver for immigration for some participants.
Maybe in addition to that, again, unfortunately, we didn't dive too much into the migration aspect, which is something that could be or should be investigated further. We accounted for this aspect a bit by providing two sets of two kind of surveys, one in English, one in French and Arabic. So we had responses from the diaspora, and without having statistical proof for it, but the data suggests a bit that there is also an economic aspect of leaving the country for whatever reason. It indicates a bit that those who left, they were able to leave, first of all, because they had the economic means and because they were going abroad to study. So a huge aspect of the SOGIESC society or community that is still in Morocco, and only the wealthier ones, the ones who have actually the means and the social status to leave, are abroad. So I think the research, nevertheless, very well indicates a bit what the actual living experiences in Morocco are and what the key drivers for leaving would be, but it always comes within a certain framework of economic and social capabilities.
Can I?
Yes,
sorry. There's a guy walking around today with a red tie. If you get a chance to talk to him, feel free. He's a really interesting guy. He's done a lot of work with the World Bank on economic arguments, and it might be something to consider for your research. He wrote an article with Professor Lee Badgett in the USA, and called the economic case of LGBT equality, and it's been proven that through data and actual data that if a country was to enact easy access healthcare facilities for queer people, same with education, and inclusive education, and decriminalize, they will add 1% to their GDP.
Yeah,
it's vast. That builds all your schools, that builds your hospitals. 1%, it does all of it, and that would increase the amount of economic productivity amongst queer people that contribute to contribute. And I think that's a great argument to attack somewhere like the Moroccan state backward, because I think sometimes we go into this narrative, let's hold off aid, let's hold off this, and rather than the will take away, what about the we can give you this argument? You know, I think the economic argument can be a really powerful one, and it might be worth talking to Phil. Make all the recommendations perhaps.
Absolutely, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Two quick questions. Firstly, in terms of the sense of the legislation part of your recommendations, was there anything that came up in the research at all around any progressive faith forces in the country that could be useful to lock into in order to do that? I know it's a bit elusive, but like at my organization, we find when we can find progressive faith leaders to be the voice big difference. And then the second quick question, and this is not a criticism, I know that the self-selection bias is really difficult to control, but it was heavily male dominated. And just if you've got any ideas about how to access LGBTQ women in Morocco for further research.
What was the first question again?
The first question was about progressive faith leaders, whether there was any sense that came, anything that came in the answers and the qualitative answers that suggested there could be any faith leaders.
From faith leader, not much, no. What the research showed that our respondents perceive that there is change going on, but very slowly. It's not coming from the Moroccan state. It's coming from a change of mentality within society. Where this change in mentality comes from is also an avenue to investigate further. What can be said also is maybe that there is a bit of a discussion going on between what kind of sensibilization and what kind of activism should be practiced in Morocco. Because there has been a huge criticism of Western activism that led actually to controversial results. One of them was a feminine campaign where 2 women went to Morocco and they kissed in public, and there was a huge media attention, and they were able to leave because they were French. When Moroccans did that, they went to jail. So there is a whole discussion going on how to tackle sensibilization, whether from within, whether secret, whether publicly. And this is something that has not been, there is no final solution to it, but it is essential to include the Moroccan society, which leads me to your second question. It's a bit difficult. I'm not sure how to, if there is a guaranteed method to access those segments. There is NGOs and collectives, like for example, what was it, Talayan, that work within those fields, but it takes a lot of trust for them to cooperate. It takes maybe somebody who's on place, on the ground. It is definitely through social networks on the ground that increases the chances that through online, the snowball system online.
Getting access to especially lesbian women in general in Morocco is quite the issue. It's a highly capitalistic society where you cannot just approach, especially not as males, you cannot just approach any, especially in rural areas, women and talk about stuff like that. They're not sort of allowed to engage with you. And also there's way much liberty for men also to sort of engage in collectives.
We had a brief partnership with Free Feminist Union, what's that?
Yeah,
When the 2 girls were arrested for kissing, we worked on a campaign with them, but it was hard to get further kind of to get it to stick with women in the country.
Yeah, another quick question. Similar to you, not criticism.
No worries.
It's nice to see the recommendations there. I'm curious to know whether you consider as part of recommendations to recommend to the Moroccan government that we should introduce the same way the UK we want to take the characteristics and discrimination law to protect personal employment and services. I don't start this not in the recommendations.
No, yeah, absolutely. I think we include that into especially into the last parts of the anti-discrimination laws that must be broadened also to include social and sexual gender minorities, which is not the case at the moment, but we definitely include that there.
When drafting those policy recommendations, we were thinking about, okay, what is the baseline? Because at the moment there's nothing. So before getting to also sometimes very technical recommendations, we were focusing on basic aspects where change needs to happen first in order to enable a broader set of protective measures.
Yeah, it's maybe sad to end on such a note, but I think the prospect for legal Morocco, even the liberal parties, even some new younger dominated liberal parties are increasingly making very homophobic statements in public, and it's just the tone that sets in politics at the moment. So yeah, it remains a bit of a fairy tale legal treatment.
I mean, UK's not brilliant. We've come a lot bit, we're still not there. The Equality Act, its current reforms have been since 2010. Its current reform? Yeah. And before that, we have to get rid of Section 28. Before that, we have to get the Thatcher. That's a different story.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the steps. And the final question I thought is there's a reason why you used the word should instead of must, because the sort of look quite an important distinction between the two words.
Yes, no, actually, we should use must. Yeah, that's just the language part.
Yes, please.
So I'm a Romanian immigrant, and I think here in 2016, one of the things that resonated to me the most out of all the sort of different queer communities that I was talking to and about specific issues, that I couldn't find any sort of specific country or cluster of countries that I was like, yes, we have the same issues back in Romania. Until I started talking a bit more about this with my Arab friends. And that's when I realized that Eastern Europe and the issues in Eastern Europe are very similar, not the same, but very similar in terms of the past, where we are now, the religious implications, the, I don't know, people's tolerance, acceptability, all of these things, on top of living, at least in Romania, in a very, very corrupt country, which also impacts things like legislation development. So through those lenses, I think I have, and I was listening to also your questions and what you were saying, I really agree with you in terms of, yes, if we think about all of these things from a UK point of view or France, Germany, whatever this would be, Western Europe, then yes, it shouldn't be should, it should be must. We should make the economical case and all of those incentives. But I was thinking, and I'm wondering if it's the same in Morocco, if you brought a research like this or any sort of economical alliance or policy recommendations to the government in Romania, they would laugh in your face. You wouldn't even get to a point where you would have their time to be able to present all of these things. So I guess very roundabout. Number one, I'm very curious if there are already any advocacy efforts or what is being done with this survey right now, or what is being planned to, because I'm curious if there was something in Romania that I could help with. How would we sort of swerve all of these barriers and challenges at all of these different levels, like societal, institutional, governmental, all of these things? And then I forgot. So let's just focus on that one for now. Are you aware of anything being done with the survey right now? Sorry.
This one, the specific one?
Well, it's not even yet published, which is why there's nothing done at the moment with it. It's just to provide information, first and foremost, provide information for already existing collectives and activists, as well as researchers that would maybe delve more quantitatively into it and then try to give it a more holistic picture then. When it comes to presenting the Moroccan government with these concerns and demands, I think it's fair to say that it would be a similar situation to Romania. You would be off that. There is simply no political majority in the foreseeable future that would even be able to implement some parts of it. I think the most realistic prospects would certainly be the societal avenue for change. So, especially allowing in international NGOs that provide some relief partially. That could be a first point. And then, I mean, Morocco is doing a lot in order to reach the SDGs, especially in green energy. And there could be an avenue of convincing change from UN perspective in certain areas that concern the health and safety of sexual and gender minorities as well. But I think it must go from the international to the national, because from the national level, there is no signs of a willingness to change. Political is just not there.
Maybe in addition to that, and to the question, to the point that Drew raised before, to the economical, or comment with economical facts. Not sure that will always work in Morocco, because there is, first of all, a cultural aspect to how to perceive things, and there is a post-colonial aspect that is not to be underestimated. And I think in the pink line, in the presentation about it, it was very well also highlighted that it is a bit of, or perceived as a bit of a clash of cultures. So resistance towards such recommendations often also comes from a point of not actually, maybe not directly refusing the recommendation itself, but refusing to, but the one who advocates for them coming from the West now, or the values that are coming from the West. One could debate that. But another important aspect that maybe is also worth highlighting, as comparing different aspects, like in the UK, in Europe, there's freedom of expression. In Morocco, there's very limited freedom of expression, which influences who has the monopoly about the debate, which means we could not go to Morocco probably and present this research. We would be laughed at, we would maybe be fined. I don't know. There is danger of that, leading maybe to central aspect of your question. I think one key, which is why we highlighted so much the lack of support systems within the Moroccan or available to the SOGIESC community in Morocco, is because there is a huge potential. And this is one of the first studies that actually quantitatively and qualitatively investigated the issue in an Arabic-speaking country, and in Morocco for sure. So it offers a set of data based on which collectives, activists could apply to donors, with which they could fund support services, with which they could fund sensibilization campaign from within. So I think there is an aspect that is worth highlighting, where this study could make a valuable contribution, and where it could actually lead to some change.